The lights of Studio 12 were so bright that they almost erased the line between dream and reality. Hundreds of audience members filled the seats, their murmurs blending into a low electric hum. Cameras glided on rails, red tally lights blinking like restless eyes. The air smelled faintly of hairspray and freshly brewed coffee. It was another live taping of the Ellen Show, the place where charm, laughter, and surprises ruled daytime television. Backstage, Jenna Lauren, global pop icon, exhaled slowly. Her team fluttered around her like bees. Last-minute makeup checks, mic adjustments, words of encouragement. Jenna had been on hundreds of shows, but this one felt different. She had a new album, Phoenix Heart, and a storm of gossip swirling around her name. "Ready?" her manager whispered. Jenna nodded, her reflection staring back with quiet fire. "Let's do it." The stage door opened. A wave of applause surged through the studio as Ellen D, with her signature grin, gestured toward the entrance. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the unstoppable, the incomparable, Jenna Lauren." Jenna stepped into the light. The roar of the crowd wrapped around her, but inside she felt the pulse of something sharper. Unease, maybe even dread. She smiled anyway. She had mastered the art of smiling through tension. Ellen stood to greet her, arms open. "Look at you. You look radiant as always." "Thank you," Jenna said, settling into the white armchair opposite Ellen's. The first few minutes went smoothly. Light banter, jokes about tour life, clips from Jenna's new music video flashing on the giant screen. The audience laughed, clapped, cheered. But Ellen was known for her sudden turns. Questions that slipped beneath the surface, the kind that left guests blinking under the studio lights. "So," Ellen said, crossing one leg over the other, tone playful but probing. "Your album's called Phoenix Heart. Rising from the ashes, huh? Sounds symbolic." Jenna kept her smile, though her fingers tightened slightly around the armrest. "It's about growth," she replied carefully. "Learning from pain." "Right," Ellen said, leaning in. "Speaking of pain, people online say the songs are about your breakup with Ryan Cole. You know, the actor everyone's obsessed with. Is that true?" A ripple ran through the audience, half excitement, half discomfort. Jenna hesitated. She'd expected the question, but hoped it wouldn't come this early. "Some of the songs are inspired by experiences," she said, keeping her voice even. "But art doesn't always point to one person." Ellen smiled wider, sensing a crack. "Come on, Jenna, there's literally a track called Liar in Leather. And Ryan was photographed last year wearing that exact jacket at your concert. Are we supposed to believe that's coincidence?" Laughter from the crowd, sharp and loud. Jenna's cheeks burned, but her eyes didn't flinch. "Maybe the song's about anyone who lies," she said. "Oh, so there are others?" Ellen teased, raising an eyebrow. The laughter swelled again, feeding the moment. Backstage, Jenna's manager froze. The teleprompter operator glanced nervously at the floor manager. This wasn't in the script. Jenna took a breath, the kind you take before a dive into cold water. "Ellen, I came here to talk about the album, not my ex," she said softly, but her tone carried an edge. Ellen chuckled, half apology, half dismissal. "Hey, we're just having fun. People want the real story." "The real story is in the music," Jenna replied. "Not in gossip." For a moment, the room felt smaller. The audience sensed the change. Cheers faded into silence. Even the cameras seemed to lean closer. Ellen, perhaps feeling the tension slip beyond her control, shifted tactics. "Fair enough. But you know, Ryan did an interview last week where he said you were difficult during the relationship. Any thoughts?" That did it. Jenna's jaw tightened. She sat forward, eyes sharp under the lights. "Difficult? That's what people call women who stop tolerating nonsense," gasps from the audience. A few claps. Someone whispered, "Wow." Ellen blinked momentarily off script. "Well, I didn't mean to upset you." "You didn't," Jenna interrupted, voice steady but cold. "It just surprises me that you'd quote something meant to belittle someone on live TV. You've always been about kindness, right?" That line hit harder than anyone expected. The crowd stirred. Even Ellen's grin faltered for a split second. "Of course," Ellen said, regaining composure. "We love you here. It's just, people are curious." "Curiosity's fine," Jenna said, standing slightly, hand smoothing the hem of her dress. "But there's a line between curiosity and disrespect." The audience clapped, hesitantly at first, then louder. Ellen looked to the producer's booth, uncertain whether to cut to commercial. But before she could, Jenna added, Maybe next time ask about art, not old wounds. And with that, she unhooked her mic. The crowd gasped. Ellen half stood. Wait, Jenna, are you leaving? Jenna smiled, but it was no longer polite, it was free. I already said everything I needed to. She turned, walking toward the stage exit as the studio erupted into a storm of whispers and flashing lights. The show cut to commercial. Backstage, 30 seconds later, producers scrambled. Assistants ran after Jenna with panic in their eyes. Ellen sat alone on her chair, microphone still live, staring at the empty seat opposite her. The applause sign flickered uncertainly before shutting off completely. Outside the stage door, Jenna stepped into the corridor, her heels echoing against the concrete floor. Her heart was still pounding, but there was no regret, only a strange calm. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Wow, saw the clip already. Bold move, she smiled faintly. You taught me that, she whispered. Somewhere down the hall, a producer shouted, We're trending already. But Jenna didn't turn back. She kept walking toward the exit, the sound of the studio fading behind her, replaced by the soft rhythm of her own footsteps, the beat of someone who had finally reclaimed her story. The applause sign flickered out, leaving Studio 12 in an awkward half-darkness. Crew members exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to chase Jenna Lauren or reset the stage. L&D sat motionless in her chair, one hand still clutching the microphone. The familiar laughter that usually cushioned her every sentence had evaporated, replaced by an eerie hum from the overhead lights. Cut to commercial, the producer hissed through her earpiece. Ellen blinked, forcing a smile for the remaining cameras. We'll be right back, she said, voice tight. The screen faded to black. The instant the red light went off, Ellen's expression changed. The warmth drained from her face. She leaned back, exhaling hard. What the hell was that? She muttered. A floor manager stepped forward cautiously. She just walked out, Ellen. Should we send security after her? Or maybe PR? Ellen waved him off. No, let her go. She wanted a moment, she got it. But inside, Ellen's heart was pounding. She'd been in awkward interviews before, but never one that cracked open on live television. And worse, she knew the internet was already cutting clips before the commercial even ended. Backstage. Jenna Lauren's heels clicked rapidly against the concrete hallway. Her manager, Sophia, finally caught up, slightly out of breath. Jenna, wait. Do you realize what you just did out there? Jenna kept walking. Yeah, I stopped pretending. You stormed off L&D's show. That clip is going to be everywhere. Good, Jenna said quietly. Let them see what happens when someone's tired of being poked for ratings. They rounded a corner toward the side exit. A junior producer hurried up with wide eyes. Jenna, please. The network wants to smooth things over. Can we get a statement, just something polite? Jenna stopped, turned, and said softly, Tell them the truth. I didn't come there to be humiliated. Then she pushed through the exit door and stepped into the sharp sunlight of the Los Angeles afternoon. For the first time all day, the air felt breathable. Inside the control room, a half-dozen editors were already replaying the footage. Cut from when she stands up, one said. No, keep the mic drop. That's gold, another countered. A senior producer pinched the bridge of his nose. Gold or not, legal's gonna hate this. The youngest intern murmured. Hashtag #GenOfZellen is trending. Within an hour, the internet caught fire. Clips spread across every platform. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram Reels. Each one captioned differently. Jenna Lauren destroys L&D live. Talk show queen finally meets her match. Unedited footage they don't want you to see. Comment sections exploded. Good for Jenna, someone finally said it. Ellen's gone too far with these ambush questions. It was clearly staged for publicity. By sunset, the confrontation had already crossed oceans. European morning shows were quoting it. Reaction videos multiplied by the minute. At L&D's home that evening, the host sat in her minimalist kitchen, phone buzzing every few seconds. She'd spent years building a brand of warmth and laughter. Now the top headlines called her cruel, provocative, even outdated. Her publicist's voice crackled through speakerphone. We need a response. Ellen, something that sounds empathetic. I didn't attack her, Ellen said, pacing. I asked a question that every other host was going to ask. Intent doesn't matter. Perception does. Ellen stared at the silent TV across the room. A replay of the interview looped on screen, Jenna's face hurt but powerful. For the first time, Ellen noticed something she'd missed in the moment, the flicker of exhaustion behind Jenna's eyes. She sank onto the couch, rubbing her temples. "Maybe I pushed too hard," she whispered. Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from Jenna herself. "I hope next time we talk it's off camera." Ellen read it twice before replying. "I didn't mean for it to go that way." 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No answer. Meanwhile, in Jenna's apartment, the mood was different. She sat cross-legged on her sofa, hair tied loosely, laptop open to the trending feed. Sophia scrolled beside her, reading comments out loud. "You've gained 500,000 followers since noon." "500,000 people who like a good argument," Jenna said with a dry laugh. "No," Sophia corrected. 500,000 people who saw you stand up for yourself." For the first time, Jenna smiled genuinely. Then maybe it was worth it. Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Jenna Lauren?" a male voice asked. "This is Max Harper, producer from Nightline Now. We'd love to have you on tonight to tell your side of the story." Jenna hesitated. "You want another interview about an interview?" "Well, the world's talking. Might as well own the narrative," Sophia mouthed. "Say no," Jenna ended the call. "No thanks. I'm done explaining myself." But part of her wondered, was silent strength or surrender? 2 days later, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the recording studio where Jenna was finishing final vocals for a charity single. Photographers swarmed, flashes bursting like lightning. She'd worn sunglasses to hide the fatigue, but the cameras didn't care. "Jenna, over here! Are you going to apologize to Ellen? Was it staged?" Each question hit like hail. She paused, turned toward them, and said firmly, "No comment." The shutters clicked even faster. The video would hit millions of views before she even stepped inside. Inside the studio, her sound engineer raised an eyebrow. "Rough day?" Jenna laughed softly. "Just another kind of concert." He pressed play and the new song filled the room. A stripped-down piano ballad she'd written months ago, long before the storm. Lyrics spilled out. "You can paint me as the villain if it keeps you entertained. But the truth still whispers quietly. Your echo can't contain my name." She closed her eyes, letting the notes wash over her. Each lyric felt heavier now, sharpened by what she'd just lived through. Back at the network headquarters, executives held an emergency meeting. Ellen's rating spiked 20% during the incident, one said. "Then we should book Jenna again," another replied. A third shook his head. "Too risky." The internet split right down the middle. "This isn't PR. It's wildfire." Someone suggested issuing a joint statement of reconciliation, a staged photo op maybe. But no one was sure if either woman would agree. That night, Ellen D. opened her email to find a single message forwarded from the network. "Would you be willing to do an on-air conversation with Jenna Lauren to clear the air?" She stared at it for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before she finally typed back, "If she agrees, I will." Across the city, Jenna received the same message. She read it twice, set the phone down, and looked out the window at the city lights shimmering against the night. Sophia asked quietly, "You're not actually thinking about going back there, are you?" Jenna didn't answer right away. "I'm thinking," she said at last, "that maybe it's time to finish what started." Her reflection in the window looked steadier than ever. The day of the reunion arrived like a storm everyone saw coming, but no one could escape. Los Angeles woke to headlines screaming, "Face-to-face, Jenna Lauren and Ellen D. live tonight." Every talk radio host dissected the feud. Every gossip site posted countdown timers. The internet wanted blood or forgiveness or both. Inside Studio 12, the familiar blue lights glowed brighter than usual. The crew had polished every surface, adjusted every camera. Yet despite the sparkle, the air was thick with nerves. Ellen sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. Her hair and suit were perfect, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion. A cue card rested on her vanity. "Stay calm, be kind." "Let her speak first." Her producer, Maxine, knocked softly. 10 minutes to air, she said. Ellen nodded without turning. "Does she look ready?" Maxine hesitated. "Depends what you mean by ready." Backstage, Jenna Lauren stood with her manager, Sophia, and a stylist who kept fussing with the hem of Jenna's crimson blazer. The color choice hadn't been accidental. Red for control, for courage, for fire. You don't owe anyone anything, Sophia whispered. I know, Jenna said, fastening her mic. But I owe myself some peace. The producer gave the countdown. 3 minutes, Ms. Lauren. Jenna took one last breath, letting it fill the spaces fear usually lived in. Then she walked toward the light. On air, Liv, the audience, clapped mechanically as the theme music played. Ellen's practiced smile returned, a fragile bridge over shaky ground. Welcome back, everyone. Tonight is special, she began, voice steadier than she felt. A few weeks ago, something happened on this stage that started a conversation far bigger than either of us expected. So I invited Jenna Lauren back because I think conversations shouldn't end in silence. Applause swelled. Cameras pivoted toward the side entrance. When Jenna appeared, the noise doubled. Some people cheered. Some held their breath. She crossed the stage gracefully, but her eyes never left Ellen's. They shook hands briefly, firmly. Thank you for coming, Ellen said. Thank you for asking, Jenna replied, settling into the same white chair she'd abandoned weeks before. For a few seconds, neither spoke. The silence was its own guest. Loud, uncomfortable, honest. Ellen broke it first. I watched that interview more times than I'd like to admit, she said. And I realized I wasn't listening. I was digging. That's not what I built this show for. Jenna nodded slowly. And I realized walking out didn't just end a segment, it started a fire I couldn't control. The audience leaned forward, sensing sincerity instead of spectacle. Ellen continued. You were right about one thing. Sometimes curiosity turns into disrespect. I'm sorry for crossing that line. For the first time, Jenna's expression softened. And I'm sorry for leaving before finishing the conversation. But that day I felt cornered. Like my music didn't matter, only my mistakes. Applause broke out, brief, heartfelt. Ellen smiled faintly. Maybe we both forgot there's a person behind every headline. Exactly, Jenna said. People see the glitter, but not the bruises underneath. The director signaled for a short clip, montage footage of online reactions, both hateful and supportive. When it ended, Ellen asked, What did it feel like watching the internet decide who you were? Jenna exhaled. Like being on trial in a courtroom with no judge. Every stranger a juror, every opinion a sentence. But there were also messages from people who said, Thank you for standing up. Those saved me. Ellen's voice softened. I know that feeling. One wrong moment and suddenly the world you built turns into a mirror reflecting only your worst seconds. The audience murmured in agreement. Then Ellen glanced toward the producer's booth, ignoring the teleprompter. Let's forget the scripted questions. Tell me something honest. What would you have wanted me to ask that day? Jenna hesitated, then smiled wistfully. Maybe, how are you really doing? No one asks that when you're famous. The crowd clapped again. Ellen's eyes glistened. So, how are you really doing? Jenna laughed through a breath. Tired. Grateful. Learning to breathe without checking if a camera's watching. They both laughed, tentative, but real. Commercial break. Off air. The studio fell quiet, except for technicians adjusting lights. Ellen leaned closer, voice low. I wasn't sure you'd come back. I almost didn't, Jenna admitted. But then I thought, if I don't face things, the story never ends. You handled it better than I did, Ellen said. Jenna smirked. We both melted a little. Now we're cooling down. The floor manager called. We're back in 10. When the red light returned, they looked calmer, as if years of tension had aged into understanding during that single minute. Second half of the show, Ellen announced. Jenna's agreed to perform a song from her album. But before that, one more question. Jenna arched a brow. Should I be worried? Ellen grinned. It's safe, I promise. Do you think you'll ever write about this moment? Jenna thought for a beat. Probably. Not about anger, though. About freedom. The audience applauded, sensing something healing in the air. She rose from her seat and walked toward the small performance stage set up beside the couches. A single piano waited under dim blue light. She sat, adjusted the mic, and began to play. The melody was slow, tender, almost fragile. The lyrics flowed. We fall apart on camera, we heal behind the scenes, the truth survives the edits, the silence in between. Ellen watched quietly, eyes shining. Crew members stood still. Even the audience stopped filming. They just listened. When the song ended, there was no immediate applause, only a beat of stillness before everyone rose to their feet. Ellen walked over, hugged Jenna tightly and whispered, "Thank you for coming back." Jenna replied, "Thank you for letting me leave and return." Later that night, backstage buzzed with relief. Producers exchanged high fives. Camera operators replayed clips of the emotional hug. Sophia handed Jenna a bottle of water. "You handled that like art." "It was art," Jenna said. Unscripted, messy, but real. Her phone lit up again, messages flooding in. But instead of fear, she felt peace. Across the corridor, Ellen removed her earpiece and exhaled deeply. Maxine handed her a cup of tea. "That might have been your best show in years." Ellen smiled faintly. Because it wasn't a show, it was a conversation. Outside, the night air was cool and quiet. Jenna stepped out of the stage door, the same one she'd stormed through weeks before. This time there were no paparazzi, no shouts, just a few fans holding flowers. One young woman handed her a small note that read, "Thanks for showing us that walking away doesn't mean it's over." Jenna smiled, tucked the note into her pocket, and looked up at the glowing studio sign. The word live flickered once, then steadied. She whispered, "Yeah, we're live again." The night after the reunion show, the city pulsed with noise. Clips of Jenna Loren's performance flooded every feed, every screen, every trending bar. The hashtag #DarLiveAgain ruled the internet. Headlines flipped overnight. From feud to forgiveness, Jenna Loren wins the internet. L&D's emotional return goes viral. What had begun as a scandal was now being reborn as a story of redemption. But as the world celebrated, the two women at the center of it were quietly trying to process what had really happened. Jenna's apartment. 2:07 a.m. The city outside her window glowed like a restless ocean. Jenna sat on the couch in sweatpants, hair tied up, scrolling through thousands of notifications. Every comment was a mixture of love, disbelief, and overanalysis. "I cried watching this. This is what maturity looks like. PR stunt or real?" Sophia, her manager, walked in with tea. "Still awake?" "Still human," Jenna said with a tired smile. "I just can't stop reading them." "You shouldn't," Sophia warned gently. "They'll love you today and question you tomorrow." "You did what you needed to do." "That's enough," Jenna leaned back. It felt real, though, didn't it? Like for once, the camera didn't steal anything, it gave something back. Sophia nodded. "Yeah, but be ready. The same spotlight that warms you can burn again." Ellen's home studio. Ellen sat at her desk, the glow of the laptop lighting half her face. The show's replay was already at 3 million views. Maxine, her producer, called on video chat. "You seeing these numbers? People are calling it your redemption arc," Maxine said. Ellen chuckled softly. "Redemption? I didn't plan a storyline, Max. Still, it's working. Sponsors are asking if you'll do a forgiveness series. Imagine, guests coming back to talk through old conflicts." Ellen hesitated. "So now healing is a format?" Maxine shrugged. "Everything is content," Ellen sighed. "Yeah, and maybe that's the problem." She ended the call and stared at the paused frame on her screen. Her and Jenna hugging under studio lights. It looked perfect. Too perfect. 2 days later, a call from the network. The network executives wanted a meeting. They smelled profit. In a sleek conference room overlooking downtown LA, Ellen sat across from 3 suits and 1 over-caffeinated social strategist. "Ellen, the reunion went beyond ratings. We're talking global engagement," one exec said. "We'd like to build on it, call it Ellen Reconnects." Ellen folded her hands. "You want me to turn that into a franchise?" "Exactly. Think of it as a bridge. America loves second chances." She looked at their eager faces and felt something twist in her chest. "And what if I don't want to package pain into a format?" Awkward silence. The youngest exec adjusted his tie. "With respect, Ellen, this is what audiences respond to now, emotion, conflict, resolution." "That's the formula." Ellen smiled faintly. "Funny. That's also what therapy is." They didn't laugh. She stood. "I'll think about it." But she already knew the answer. Meanwhile, Jenna's side of the world. Jenna was back in the studio trying to record. But fame had changed its shape again. Every lyric she wrote was dissected before release. During a break, Sophia entered with a cautious look. "There's something you need to see." She handed her a tablet. A viral video was climbing fast. An edited clip of the reunion cut to make it look staged. Fake captions, altered audio, clickbait headlines. The Ellen-Jenna reunion was scripted. Insider leaks proof. Jenna's face drained of color. Who's doing this? Sophia frowned. No one knows yet. Some anonymous account started it. But it's gaining traction. They're saying it was PR down to your song. Jenna slammed the tablet on the couch. Of course. The internet can't let something be real for 5 minutes. That night she went live on her social media, alone, without filters. Her followers poured in by the thousands. People keep asking if that reunion was fake, she said quietly. But here's the truth. If it was, then so is every apology you've ever made in your life. Because healing doesn't come with proof. It just happens. Or it doesn't. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. I went back because I was tired of being defined by a moment of anger. Maybe you think that's weak. I think it's human. She ended the stream abruptly, tears catching the light of her screen. Within an hour, the clip had gone viral. Again. But this time, the tone was different. Hashtags shifted. Jenna speaks truth. Healing is human. The storm was loud, but this time, it seemed to fight for her. 3 weeks later, the network aired a special titled Behind the Reunion. It featured unseen footage, moments where both women had been candid. Unsure, real. Critics called it the most unpolished yet powerful episode of Ellen's career. In a voiceover, Ellen said, "Sometimes we think closure happens in front of millions, but real closure happens when you stop defending your pain." Backstage, after the special, Jenna waited behind the curtain again, this time not as a guest, but as a collaborator. Ellen had invited her to co-host a new live segment that focused on artists rebuilding themselves after public failures. Ellen walked in, smiling. "You ready?" Jenna laughed. "Funny. Last time you asked me that, I almost didn't show up." "Yeah," Ellen said, adjusting her earpiece. "Guess we both showed up this time." They walked on stage together as the audience rose in applause, not the kind that screams or demands, but the kind that thanks. Later that night, the city slept. But in 2 different homes, both women sat awake again, this time not haunted, just thinking. Ellen opened her journal, something she hadn't done in years, and wrote, "Maybe growth isn't about fixing what was broken. Maybe it's about realizing it still matters." Jenna, on her balcony, hummed a new melody, soft, uncertain, but full of promise. The same moonlight touched both of them across the distance. Some stories don't end. They just echo differently. Morning sunlight spilled through the studio blinds, painting gold stripes across the empty stage. The familiar white couches sat perfectly aligned, cameras waiting in silence. It was the same set where everything had begun. The clash, the walkout, the return. Only now it wasn't chaos that filled the air. It was calm. Ellen D. stood near the center, holding a cue card she didn't really need. Her name still gleamed on the studio wall in bold letters, but this morning, the network had quietly confirmed what she'd already decided. This would be her final show. The talk show queen of 15 years was walking away, but she didn't feel sad. Not exactly. There was something freeing about ending a story before it curdled. Her producer Maxine approached, headset around her neck. "You sure you don't? Want a big farewell special? The network's ready to roll highlights, celebrity tributes, all that." Ellen smiled softly. "No. Let's just do one real conversation. No montages, no tears." "Then who's your last guest?" Maxine asked, though she already knew. Ellen's gaze drifted to the stage door. "The same person who reminded me why I started this in the first place." Backstage, Jenna Lauren looked at herself in the mirror, tracing the faint scar along her wrist. The one she never hid but never explained. It wasn't physical pain she remembered from those days. It was the noise of fame. But today was different. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ellen. "Thanks for saying yes, let's end it our way." Jenna smiled and tucked the phone away. "Let's finish this story," she whispered. On air, final episode. The applause began softly, like the audience understood they were witnessing something rare. Ellen waved and took her seat. "Welcome, everyone. This is the last time I'll say that." Laughter, then a bittersweet hush. She continued, "I've had conversations with presidents, actors, strangers who changed lives. But the one conversation that changed mine was the one I almost didn't finish. The stage door opened. Jenna entered wearing a simple cream blazer and no stage makeup. Just her. The audience erupted, but Ellen gestured for quiet. "One last time," she said, smiling as Jenna sat beside her. "Feels weird to be back here again," Jenna admitted, looking around. "Yeah," Ellen replied. "It's like coming home after you've moved out. The furniture remembers you." They both laughed softly. The audience did too, but gently, like they didn't want to interrupt. "So," Ellen began, "you're on top of the charts again. World tour coming up, brand new documentary." "You survived the storm?" Jenna tilted her head. "We both did." Ellen smiled. "Yeah, I guess we did." A pause settled between them. Not awkward, just honest. "Do you ever wish that first interview never happened?" Ellen asked quietly. Jenna thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but then I realize if it hadn't, I wouldn't be this version of me, the one who knows when to fight and when to forgive." "That's the thing about live TV," Ellen said. "You can't take words back. But you can speak better ones next time." The crowd applauded softly. They played a short clip, not of the fight, not of the walkout, but of their reunion performance, the piano, the hug, the moment that had gone from scandal to healing. When it ended, the camera cut back to Ellen. She looked directly into the lens. "We live in a world that records every mistake," she said. "But I hope what people remember is that change is also live. Growth doesn't need perfect lighting. It just needs witnesses." The studio fell silent. Some people in the audience wiped tears. Ellen turned to Jenna. "You once said walking away doesn't mean it's over. I think you were right." Jenna smiled. "And sometimes walking back doesn't mean it's the same." They both stood. The audience rose too. Without cue, Jenna crossed to the piano. "Can I play something?" Ellen nodded. "Only if it's the truth." The lights dimmed. Jenna began to play, soft, soulful, like the room itself was breathing with her. Her voice floated over the melody. "We break, we mend, we fall again. The echo fades, but not the pain. Yet in the noise, I found my name. I lost the fame, but kept the flame." By the last line, Ellen was standing beside her, eyes glistening. The audience didn't cheer right away. They just stood there, moved, grounded, alive. After the show, when the cameras cut, there were hugs, laughter, quiet goodbyes. Crew members packed equipment, lights dimmed one by one. Ellen walked Jenna to the exit, just like before. "This time," Jenna said, smiling, "I'm walking out the calm way." Ellen laughed. "Yeah, no slammed doors this time." They paused by the doorway, that symbolic threshold that had once meant conflict and now meant closure. Jenna turned to her. "You think people will remember this version of us?" Ellen shrugged. "Maybe. Maybe not. But we'll remember it. That's enough." They hugged once more, longer than before, no cameras, no audience, just two women who had burned, fallen, and rebuilt in front of the world. Outside, later. The city was quiet again. The studio sign that once blazed live now simply read, "Closed set." Ellen stood alone for a moment, breathing in the night air. Then she smiled, not the practiced TV smile, but the kind that comes when a story finally exhales. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jenna. "Thank you for letting it end beautifully." Ellen typed back, "It didn't end. It transformed." She slipped the phone into her pocket and walked toward her car. Somewhere in the distance, a street musician played a soft version of Jenna's new song. The words floated faintly through the wind, about fame, forgiveness, and fire. Ellen stopped listening. Then she whispered to herself, almost like a prayer. "Once live, always alive." And with that, she smiled and disappeared into the city lights.